So firstly, make sure you're on version 2.10 or higher, and you'll have access to the new Joomla plugin area. This actually enables you to build plugins that are connected to the components that you've developed in JCB. The plugins, we try to do it in a way that gives you a lot of freedom, but the more freedom we allow, the more we are actually back at writing code. So we also try to help those who maybe don't know that much PHP but just knows a little bit of it, to start with some type of templating, usually called boilerplating. So we have boilerplate behind the plugin area, which if the first time you install the new version 2.10, you will not have those boilerplate values in the system. So I'll show you how to get those in the place so you can quickly basically start doing something. Now, those of you who want to actually help us expand the boilerplate concept, I'll also show you where to do that. It's quite simple. Yeah, so let's start looking at this. So when you open it the first time, as I said, there's no values here. You'll see there's a button to methods and properties. Methods are functions in classes, as properties are class variables. And so when you import the boilerplates for plugins, it creates a whole bunch of methods and a whole bunch of properties, which you can dynamically use as a sort of starting point in writing your class for your plugin. Okay, so even if you go there now, the methods area has no values, the properties area has no values. This is going to be the areas in which, once we add Joomla modules, they will function very much similar. We're trying to sort of move JCB in this direction. We are hoping to do that as well for the component area, but that's for later. For now, let's just look at this. Okay, so first I'm going to just click on this get boilerplate. Now, just a heads up, the boilerplate will always override if you've, let's say you've done this before and you've actually gone and changed any of the methods or properties in the boilerplate level, and you do this again, it will override those changes. I think I should demonstrate that quickly. So let's say I open methods here and I take this user authenticate. We see, okay, it didn't add any code here. It's basically just a code block, doc block. So let's say I add this, made it happen, okay, and then save it. We basically now made a change to this boilerplate, and it has a version. So it has logged the change there. It has the original, and then it's locked it in here as well. Okay, so when we go out of this and we actually go and import the boilerplate again, it's going to divert, in fact override, if you'd say, that change that we've made. So if I go there again and I open that method again, you'll see the code's gone. So the way to get back to it though is go and look at the timestamp and say restore, and you'll see it's back. So there is a way to recover from such an update, but it's not obvious, so I'm sort of showing it here so you know. Okay, so now you can start with your first plugin, and it's quite simple from here on, because you could select the class that in Joomla you're going to extend, and as the boilerplate area expands, this list might also expand depending. So you'd select the extended plugin, and this will immediately show you what groups of plugins can now be built with this extended class. So you want to do the, let's say, the new installer group. You select that, and immediately you'll be able to, over here, select properties and methods which you now want to use in your class area. So this area is where the properties and methods of your class is going to be added. So, well, let's give it a name. Let's call it the first plugin I build, whatever. This is the system name. It's not really relevant to the plugin itself. It's just that you can identify it across the system more easily. Then over here, you could decide, oh well, this plugin in relation to this group and this extend must have my component name. So depending on which component you link it to, you can add the component name in there like that. So dynamically JCB will update that name with the component name, which is very nice because then it is more identifiable to your component. Here you can add some description. And yeah, that kind of thing. And now select a property. So you could say I want the app property and the database property on and it will add the code here at the bottom. You can then also, well, you could remove it and you'll see it'll take it away again. It is not supposed to do all the work, and if for some reason you change something over here and it doesn't do it exactly down here, I mean, just type it in. This is just for you. It's not used in the build. The build just focuses on this. So we're not using this as such. Oh yeah, well, select it and then you can adapt it. You could say, no, this one I want to be false, for example. And yeah, that's true and that's good. Okay, so you can, you can decide whether you want the app on the page or you want the database, true or false. There are obviously defaults being extended from CMS plugin. So if you don't add these, it will fall back to the default in this class, right? Then same goes with methods. You can now select the methods you want. This is probably the one you'll use mostly. If you are having a package that needs to validate a key before it gives you a download, this one is the one you want to use. And so here you can now add your code. This is where you'll need to know your PHP and manage that. So here's the URL, here's the headers being passed to your system to get the download package. So you need to know what to do with those to get this, to work. You don't need to return anything as it's that's pointers being passed, so you can just update the values and it'll be updated. Okay, so there you go. You've basically done enough. Now the plugin will work. Okay, if you've added your code in here, no, well, it won't work because not yet linked to a component, but it's ready to be linked. Whereas there is still the option to add fields to your plugin. So any fields that exist in JCB can also now be used here. So you could say, oh, I want to have a name field or something. And you can add, on the constructor of the install script, the pre-flight update, all these installation areas you can target with PHP. You can do some MySQL install and uninstall scripts. You can add a README. You can add an update server and sales server to where this plugin must be moved on compilation. So that's all kinds of things you could still add to your plugin. I'm going to save out of this to show you some more. There's also this plugin updates and plugin files and folders. So you can actually, just like with a component, add files, even URL values, to your plugin on compilation. So this gives you a little bit of option to add custom PHP files to your plugin. Okay, so next step, you go to your component and you'll see there's now this new plugin little icon. And here you can select the plugin. So you can see it says there the first plugin I built, and then sort of gives you an idea of how the plugin name is going to look. It's class, PLG, installer, and the component name extends CMS plugin. That sort of tells you what's going to happen. And so you save and close out of this, and your plugin is ready to go. At this point, All you need to do is basically to compile. So let's do that. Gonna just select our component and compile. Now you'll see there is two installing buttons, one for the component, one for the plugin. If you want to install both on the local site, you'll simply click on this install all above extensions, which means you could link more than one plugin, of course, and later even modules. And then here at the bottom you can download the component and download the plugin, and it gives you the paths to the fields. We are working towards the implementation of a packaging system for JCB. You see, at the end of the day, for us to package, we can package more than one component, more than one plugin, even libraries and modules and templates, all can be done into a package. So instead of just packaging this component into itself with the linked plugins or modules as we go, we thought, well, rather build a independent packaging area where you can select multiple components and external zipped packages, which automatically then will be packed when you so desire. So this is something we're still debating and, well, discussing really, as what would be the best direction. Such now, this is where we are at. You can download this and do your own packaging for now. And actually, when the new packaging thing comes in, it will be underneath compiler, I suppose. Well, I'll put it in somewhere and make a tutorial. So that's how you get the new plugins into your components. So I think, let me go and show you the code. Okay, so here in my template folder, I've got the demo component package as we usually would, and here's the new plugin. If I open this up, we see it has a language folder, and there's the PHP file that we built. When I open that up, we see that here is our properties, and here's the method. There's the header, and so our plugin was built. The new plugin area is also been added to the extraction package. So if you were to export this JCB as a package, it will actually include the plugins that you linked to it. So that's just that you know, the new plugin area, every plugin linked to this component will also be exported and become part of the JCB package, which are then being moved in backup as well as then for deployment in another system. One last thing I want to quickly show you is the option to now build a privacy plugin. Joomla has its own privacy suite, which allows for integration with Joomla, so that when a person makes a request for its data, wants to anonymize it itself, remove it from your system, this suite that Joomla has added empowers you as a third-party extension developer to integrate with that and to provide necessary tools. So again, we are here confronted with the methods: can remove data, export request, and the remove data, the actual remove of the data. So here you can now add your code to manage this. Now we know that you need to do a lot of house cleaning with regards to the request. So one of the ways that I'm going to implement this for my own projects, if I can sort of quickly update the code here, you'll see that can remove data. I'm going to start with getting the status, checking whether there is a user been passed, and if not, we'll just return the current status. Otherwise, I'm going to check in my components helper class whether there is the exact same method that exists in my component. Then I'm going to pass to it this specific class, the status, and basically the request, and the user. I'm just passing it directly over to this method, which means that I can reuse this privacy method in other components and adapt the component based on its own helper class implementation of this function. Same goes with the other privacy export. I start a domain array, check that we have a user, validate that my helper class has this method set, pass it again those variables that comes to the method, and then since this is passed by reference, we will return the domain with the new set of array, or either nothing, which is just an empty array. The same goes with the remove of data. We do the very same thing, which means our plugin should actually include our components helper class. So we say that we want to adapt the header. Currently the header already includes certain things we want. So I'm going to add this extra inclusion, which is the helper class, again using this placeholder to dynamically update it per component, and declare it here. You can decide whether you want to add these. I think this one is required. Well, the database one depends on what you want to achieve. So you have these all being added in and then made available. If you obviously want to make use of these classes, yeah, you know they're already added and you can use them. So here we can add the name again, just using the component placeholder as a name, because we want to have it unique to the component. Here we want to, we call this the global privacy plugin. We actually want to add the properties. Oh, we already got those. So I'm just going to mark them in here so we know they are loaded. But we already have them up here. So if you know you've copied stuff over and they are not exactly the same, then it will add it a second time. So I'm just going to take that out, and since we have them here, this should be fine. Okay. Now we want to make sure that this plugin cannot be installed if your component is not installed. So under, whoops, wrong place. Under pre-flight, we're going to add this snippet in here. Now let me explain you what it does. At first we create a path to core string, which is the same as the one used here to get the helper class, right? It's the same helper class path. We then check with whether this file exists, and if it doesn't, we want to give a message that can help the user get it. And so we have component acronym, I just added that, a get component link and component link name, which again we can define per component with the new placeholder implementation in JCB. Now we have a tutorial about that, and I would suggest you go and look in the playlist to see how that works. Whereas now here I'm going to do a very quick demonstration. So the component to which this plugin is going to be linked can have its own placeholders with regards to each of these. So you can also have a global value, which will then be applicable to all components, and then you can override that global value on a component per component level. That's what the new placeholders are able to achieve. So let me show you that briefly. So in the global component placeholder, I can add one that says, okay, component acronym, and here I can say JCB or demo, whatever now makes sense to me for my global variable of this. And I can save and close. Then I can do one for the get component link, which I can add here, and I can just grab any link that I want the user to go to get the component for the plugin, right? And save and close. And then maybe since the per component the name of the link is different, I can actually also add Joomla Component Builder demo, just like that. Okay, so that means we now have global values for these placeholders which we used in our plugin. But now on the component level, there is this little magnifying glass here where you can override those. You can say for the component link name, I want to just have demo, for example, and not Joomla Component Builder demo, and save and close. And so you basically override only one of the globals. So when you now would compile this, the behavior would be what you would expect, that your local and global scopes remain intact. So we open the plugin again and realized, oops, I didn't link it to the component. This is still the installer plugin. So let's quickly link that plugin as well. The privacy plugin. Save and close. And let's try compile this again. So now we have two plugin links here, one for the installer, one for the privacy. And in our temporal folder, we also have now the privacy plugin. So I'm going to open this archive, and now we'll see there is a script file in it, and I'm going to open that in my IDE. And so in my IDE, I now see that it replaced the name with demo, and it didn't replace my name. And well, the reason for it is a little obvious, but I wanted to show you what will happen. So let me quickly fix that for us. The problem is we didn't add our braces in as oh wait, not this one. We must add these braces in here for it to work. So we open the archive again, open the file in our IDE, and we look at and we see now it's only demo. So we were able to override our placeholder for this component when using that plugin. So that's a quick demonstration of the new plugin implementation and how you can achieve quite some interesting stuff here. Not only within the plugins, but also with relation to other areas of JCB, being able to use fields in it, being able to use custom code as well as placeholders within your plugins, and that it all just works as you would expect. For example, if you want to change any of these things, you can open them up at the boilerplate, knowing that if you pull boilerplate again, it will override those changes, but you can revert. Well, I hope this is helpful. Enjoy the new plugin area. If you find room for improvement, start discussions on the forum, and eventually, if it seems to be viable, feature request, we move it to GitHub. If you discover any bugs, yes, please quickly give us a heads up there and we'll take a look. Well, thanks for watching. Speak to you again soon.